Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. Shotgun and I are back from our road trip to the desert. We have a lot to talk about. USC 31-26 victory over the Arizona State Sun Devils. It was a close one, which is interesting given that USC was up 28-7 at the end of the first quarter. An interesting victory for sure. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, as we put in the topics, USC's amazing first 15 minutes of the game, but fans are not satisfied. It's interesting. Ryan and I were talking about how sometimes these Clay Helton wins don't really feel like wins. We'll get into that. Then you can call us as usual, 512-4-TUNNEL. Live therapy, as I always say, if you need to get some things out, ask some questions, we're here for you. Call us at that number. You can also tweet at us, hashtag TunnelVision. I'll put your tweet up on the screen. We'll read it. We'll talk about it. All that good stuff. And per usual, wherever you're watching on our 3 platforms, YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, put your comments, questions, concerns, and we will answer them. But guys, like I said, an interesting one in the desert. It looked like a blowout. It had all the signs of a blowout, and then ASU kind of creeped back in. Maybe it was USC kind of shooting themselves in the foot. But I guess, Ryan, let's start off with you. What were your takeaways from this game?
Well, yeah, first you get word before the game that ASU star freshman quarterback Jaden Daniels wasn't going to play, and then it was sort of like, all right, this is probably a very winnable game now. I thought it'd be close. You know, Herman was really good at things. You just felt like USC was going to come out and probably beat this team when you have a quarterback who's never thrown a pass before, has never taken an official snap before. And so, you know, that's an advantage for USC. That first quarter, like, I don't know what else you would say that could be better. It was 315 yards for USC.
I know something, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Okay, to one. They did so many good things. They overcame that really bad one. But 315 yards to one. It was 28-7. And everything was like, you know, Keaton Slovis is on pace to throw for
like
1,100. Yeah, 1,100 yards and, 16 touchdowns and all this stuff. And, you know, to score 3 more points in the final 45 minutes of the game, like if you had to draw, like, what's a recipe for an unsatisfying win? Like, that would be it, where we were just, you know, shotguns watching the replay. Oh, yeah, there was that pick 6 that got called back for a defensive holding penalty. Otherwise, USC loses that game. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's sort of like the whole season is in a microcosm again, where USC comes out and you can see the potential. The bar is high because there's a lot of talent on this team. Like, you can do what you saw in the first quarter, but then, you know, that's only 1 quarter of the game. 3 quarters of the game, you play blah. So it's, we've seen this before, Shotgun.
I mean, the special teams play was bad. The defense made some adjustments, and, you know, they kind of saved things in the second half because the offense continued to struggle to finish drives. They got after the first 4 drives, they had 5 more possessions move into Arizona State territory. They got 3 points.
Wow.
This is coming off a week where against Oregon, they had 11 of their 12 drives moved into Oregon territory, and they got 24 points. So they've had 20 drives the last 2 weeks move into the opponent's territory and has scored 54 points. That's just not acceptable. It's 2.7 points, but when you move into the opponent's territory, that number should be 5 or 6 point. You know, it should be way further up there than 2.7. Like, you may take some field goals, but you should be scoring a lot more, the percentage-wise there. So that's an unacceptable number, and they're killing themselves with penalties. One, like, they're getting, and, you know, I talked to Graham Harrell after the game and a little bit before the whole swarm of reporters got there, and he said, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, you know, we're not being disciplined, we're getting behind the chains with stuff, and those things are happening, and it did not help that they lost their center and Slovis for, you know, a quarter and a half, somewhere in there, on the same play. it really hurt that they didn't have Brett Neal on. I think that's where some of the false starts and stuff came from. It was not a cohesive unit after that, but they were also struggling to finish drives before that. It wasn't like it was a immediate switch that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's still things that need to be fixed there, and it's just not happening. I mean, and Graham said, we'll improve on it, and you kind of want to stop and go,
what game is this?
Yeah.
do you not see it's November?
Yeah.
You should be improved already. And so you're hearing more and more injuries are being played up by the coaching staff.
Yeah.
That was the
Clay
interesting,
Helton at least.
That was the interesting thing from Clay Helton's Sunday night press conference is he leaned hard into the injuries. And to be fair, I think injuries are a major concern of the season. I was thinking about how long did USC actually have its full starting roster intact? Maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the season, until JT Daniels went down. So, but I think we can have two things. We can have, hey, injuries are a big part of the season, but you're also underperforming as a team. But Clay Helton's really leaning into the injuries thing. He did so after the game as well. So it's interesting hearing how hard he's pushing that kind of towards the end of the season.
It's sort of like, I'm not going to say that they're making excuses, but they're kind of putting that out there like, hey, yeah, we're struggling, but there's a lot of injuries and stuff. And, there's some validity. There are definitely some injuries, but you've been doing this throughout the entire season. This isn't like something that's happening right now or it just started. Like there've been these issues from the get-go, and it's not about the injuries. It's about the culture of the team. It's about the way they prepared. It was about the offseason, about not making enough changes. Like this is those concerns that you had. That's why you're seeing a really inconsistent team that has talent, that can play at a high level, but just in short spurts. And it's weird for this team where they're coming out and scoring early on just about every game. I think the last 3 games and the first 4 games, they've scored a touchdown on their opening drive. I mean, that's pretty good. It's almost like the scripting stuff works, or people figuring out what they're doing. They're not making as many adjustments, but it's a team that seems consistently to start out pretty strong and then sort of peter off.
And you look in the second half, they had 3 false start penalties, 3 drives in a row with a false start penalty. 2 of those, they finished the drive on 4th and 4 and 4th and 5. So if they don't have those right before that, then, hey, you pick up another first down, you move the ball a little bit further down the field, and, maybe you get a field goal or something. They got the ball in the 50, didn't score any points. They got the ball in the 41 with 5 minutes left and say, hey, all you got to do is get a field goal, and you at least force them to – they've got to now score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion to tie you. Whereas that last drive is say, hey, they score and they win the game. So it's a completely different mindset, as a defense. It was Christian Rector saved the day, not it would have been much tougher on the Arizona State offense, if USC would just got a field goal out of that. And you're at the 41. It takes 7 yards to be in field goal range. That's it.
That's a big issue. That the fact that Arizona State was driving to not only it wasn't to tie, it was to win the game.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable. There's no way USC should have only had 3 points in the final 3 quarters there. I mean, that's a big failing. It's part of, what we've seen, the DNA of this coaching staff, and it's just that's not changing. And injuries aren't the reason why. And Clay Helton on the conference call today praised the assistant coaches for some of the adjustments they've made dealing with the injuries. And, I think, especially in the secondary, I think they've done a really good job. You have a lot of talented players. There's a lot of depth on this team. Clay Helton talked about that being the strength. You just can't use injuries as an excuse. This is why we're playing mediocre football for the majority of these games. That's not the reason.
Also, in the beginning of the season, Clay Helton, after, a Stanford game maybe, said, no one's going to feel sorry for us because of the injuries we have. And that narrative has switched. And now it's we got so many injuries. The assistant coach is doing a great job, with preparing the guys. And they are. I think that they've done a good job preparing the backups. Guys like Dorian Hewitt coming in and playing well. Dejon Benton getting in there and playing well with Marlon Tuipulotu out. The injuries they've had have not been insignificant. Because it's not like, hey, your backup right guard is injured, and they've had some of those injuries as well with Andrew Voorhees and Liam Jimmons on the offensive line, but their starting 5, we expected Jalen McKenzie to be in that group initially. Their starting 5 has remained intact, and that is a small miracle on any team if to keep your starting 5 offensive line healthy. But they've had, other than that, the running back injuries have really affected them. It's affected the game plan the last few weeks, just what exactly they can do. That's why they threw the ball 57 times last week. the injuries at middle linebacker, the injuries at safety, in the secondary, those have all, been significant injuries.
Yeah.
However, they still didn't correct the discipline, the turnovers. Now, you throw the turnovers towards you got a freshman quarterback. I know that's part of it, but you've also fumbled the ball a couple times. The discipline is the biggest one. If that's the thing you were going to attack this offseason, the penalties are still killing them over and over. And also the mistakes that they're making on special teams and stuff. Those are discipline, staying in your lane, those type things. The tackling is not good on the defensive side, and that's still been an issue all season. Why have you not attacked that harder to do something different and kind of shore that up in practice? It just hasn't happened. And these are basically the same things we've said for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Since they've come off the Rose Bowl, and even during that season, it's like these are some of the issues that they're having, and they made up for it. But then last year, particularly, is like they're just not tackling at all. They're undisciplined. There's way too many penalties. These are the same things coming up over and over. So you can't blame injuries for multiple year runs of similar issues that they're having like that. And also, there is a fundamental issue with something they're doing to have as many injuries they've had for the 4-year run or whatever under Helton, and maybe even a couple before that.
Yeah.
Whether it's the training staff, the way they're attacking practice, or whatever the reason is, it's an issue.
Yeah.
They've had way too many injuries consistently over the last few years.
Keely, I want to get you and Shotgun's thoughts on this.
Sure.
Mike Bone, first game he gets to watch as USC's athletic director.
True.
I think it was a pretty, typical kind of performance where you see like the boom and the bust. You see like the highs and the lows. What do you think of that? I think it's kind of a perfect for him to see USC won. They look really good at times. They look crappy more than their fair at the time, and it wasn't very satisfying as far as the fans go.
Yeah, I mean, he said in his press conference that good teams finish strong. Now, he was talking about the season, but if you just look at the game in itself, USC didn't finish strong at all. So, I mean, I think you can, like you said, get a sure sense of what this team is by looking at the game. It was kind of a microcosm. I talked about it on Instant Analysis, where you saw pure talent shining in this game. Keaton Slovis going off in the first quarter. Drake London prying a ball, a would-be interception away from a defender. Stuff like that, where you see the talent, but you also see the deficiencies in coaching and technique, in form and self-discipline, stuff like that. So I think you see both of that in this game, and that's really what this team is under Clay Helton. You can see those bright spots and those areas where they definitely need to improve. So I think you're right, Ryan. Shannon?
Similar. I mean, it's just you see this type of game and you go, for the fans that have watched it, say it's kind of characteristic of how this tenure has gone. There's ups, there's downs. Every game, for the most part, is exciting.
There's drama always.
There's almost always drama. So for better or worse in that regard. So yes, it was probably a good game to see as an athletic director, to see the areas of deficiencies, the areas of strengths. It was a characteristic game. So I think that actually is a positive for Bone to be able to see, how much he got to see of the game. He also got to see the Oregon game. The first one as AD, he said he watched the Oregon game.
Okay,
I don't know why he would have been watching that game because he knew he was flying in Monday morning to sign his contract or whatever it may be. But, yeah, so he saw that game as well, and that one had similar tendencies. There was that big run by Oregon, but it was some ups, some downs, and then the team, kind of quit on them that one. This one, they fought through, and they got the victory. They got a bowl eligible. They did just enough.
But the thing is,
obviously, very unsatisfying win, but they got the win, and that's what Clay Helton's going to hang his hat on. Is that wins and losses are supposed to be what counts, right? They got to win in this one. But then, if you want to say wins and losses are what counts, let's look at the overall record at the same time.
Yeah, and this is against a quarterback who was having his first start. What was the game in if Jaden Daniels was in, if the offense was a little bit more competent, given how much the ASU got the ball, stuff like that, where it's like, this could have gone a different way if little things change. But I think the biggest thing, too, if you're talking about wins, Shotgun, USC is now bowl eligible, something that they didn't do in 2018. They now did it now. It was interesting. I thought the Clay Helton corrected himself, but there was kind of some happiness about being bowl eligible, which I think you should celebrate. But he was like, he also said that's not the goal. You know, the goalpost is kind of moved in that sense.
Yeah.
I know Amon-Ra St. Brown said I don't celebrate 6 wins, which he was kind of the only one in that sense who had that mindset of they can do so much more. But I mean, what do you take away from this team becoming now bowl eligible?
Yeah, I thought Clay Helton was pretty good when he was talking about that. But, you know, and Christian Rector, I like him a lot. And I feel bad. I kind of gave a snarky tweet when he said that. You know, he's like, this is a big deal. We're bowl eligible now in the press conference after the game. And I'm like, is that really where you're going to set the bar? Like, it just, that kind of rang, you know, I didn't really like it. But, you know, he's a kid. I don't want to say anything, you know, be super critical of him. But
there's a difference. If an underclassman said that, then I would agree. But as a senior, knowing that you get one extra game, knowing that you get one extra month, and, you know, is Christian Rector an NFL player? You know, he's a kind of maybe a tweener at that spot. You know, is he quick enough to come off the edge and be a guy in the NFL? Don't know. Is he big enough to be able to put on the weight to play defensive tackle? So it may be an extra, just one more game or one more month that he gets to play football. So, yeah, I can understand where he would say that. And I can also understand where Amon-Ra St. Brown is coming from because he's super competitive as an underclassman. Like, going to a bowl game, yeah, whatever.
we assume, he would assume that.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't come to USC to hope you make a bowl game.
So I talked to a couple of the coaches, and they talked about, you know, becoming bowl eligible, and they said, hey, it's fun because I get an extra month with a guy like Christian Rector or with John Houston or some of those guys. But you could also tell in their tone that it wasn't, you know, they weren't, you know, super giddy that, hey, we're now bowl eligible. It's an assumption at USC. It should be an assumption.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be under 500 any year. You know, it's happened, 4 times in 65 years, you know, prior to last year, I think it was something like that. It's a ridiculous number. So bowl games are assumed. What you do, which bowl game you're going to, you know, the hoopla around that bowl game, that's, you know, much more. But I understand a senior saying that because he's going to get an extra month to play football.
Yeah. Sorry, Christian, for the snarky tweet. You'd be happy for the bowl stuff.
Ryan and his snarky tweet.
I was getting a little snarky. I wasn't even drinking. I was home on the couch, you know, listening to the broadcast, watching on TV, watching on Twitter, and I was getting pretty snarky. I got in fights with people about Ed Orgeron. It was awesome. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. All you people, like, Ed Orgeron has the #1 team in the country now, okay? So one of the many, many, many bad decisions by former USC AD Pat Hayden.
Yeah, I think we'll put that to the side for now.
We'll put it to the side. Yeah.
I think one of the things that came out after the game was, you know, USC fans are like kind of accelerationists at this point. They're kind of like hurry up and lose to a certain extent. And if USC wins, they're kind of like, no. But I know you tweeted about this, Ryan. You think that the writing's on the wall. No matter how the season ends, there's a sure outcome.
Yeah, I think you're just playing out the string at this point. And, you know, we're hearing the language from Clay Helton as someone he's trying to come up with, hey, you know, the future is bright, sort of these kind of reasons where, like, hey, if these injuries weren't happening, we'd be looking a lot better. And that's, you know, he wants to keep this job as long as he can possibly keep it. He should have been hired in the first place. He knows, you know, you're on borrowed time as soon as you take that job. Lynn Swann gave him an extension and some extra time, so he probably got a little, you know, more than he was even. We got bugs attacking Keely over there. Sorry.
I'm on a one shot, so they can't see that.
Nice. She hit. She was like swiping and hit the microphone, so it's funny.
Yeah,
there's a little gnats will get in here sometime. But there, you know, that's what he's trying to do right now. And to me, it's like we all like Clay Helton. You know, do you feel bad? It's like, yeah, I mean, as a person, you're like, you don't want to see someone lose their job. There's families, everyone's involved. But it's time for USC to move on. It's overdue for USC to move on. And he's going to get a check when they fire him for $10 million or something crazy, an amount of money that none of us will make in our lifetimes. Maybe, I don't know how many people out there. Maybe Keely's going to.
Yeah, Ryan, don't limit me.
You're younger than me. Like I'm that. Like it's not. That's not happening.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, how bad do you want to feel for him? Like he had a pretty good run, and he's going to get paid a lot of money, and then he can go do something else somewhere else. So yeah, to me, Keely, it's just a matter. You know, don't worry about it. Like you win a game like this, it's not like convincing anyone. Like, yeah, this team's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Never say never with USC.
That's also fair.
For better or worse, you know, when you hire Pat Hayden followed by Lynn Swann, you hire Clay Helton when you had an outside search party that was supposed to go and look around the nation to find someone. Like, oh, he's sitting over there in the office.
Yeah.
We hired him right before he loses the Pac-12 championship to Stanford type of thing. So yes, it looks to be headed in that direction, but I will not put anything in writing until you actually see it done, because it's USC and you're following the plan that has been there. Yeah. Now, is there new blood in USC's? Is there a new athletic director? Sure. But let's see those things actually happen before you count them as expectations, as was the case last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, real quick, yes or no? Jaden Daniels starts that game. Does ASU win, Keely?
I predicted that last week. I said that ASU was going to win. I think so. You're missing Marlon Tuipulotu. I think the ASU wins.
I do too.
No, because they would have just scored on that drive, and then USC would have thrown in a Hail Mary to Michael Pittman, just like I predicted last year.
Yeah. I think our predictions, we thought Jaden Daniels was going to play, so our predictions stay the same.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you look at it and you say, well, hey.
You saw the way it played out.
It's a guy making his first start. Keaton Slovis is making his fifth. I mean, Jaden Daniels is making his eighth. I mean,
this is his first career pass, first everything.
I know, but it's not like you got a fifth-year senior, Manny Wilkins, and then you're throwing a guy in the fire. And he's going against Slovis is a young guy too. So I take away a little bit of that. Joey Yellen made some good throws. There were a couple throws where you're just like, the thing that I think would have been different is that Yellen is a pocket guy, did not leave the pocket at all. Maybe Jaden Daniels gets a first down or two more. So it could have played out differently in that way. But it's hard to say that, because I think Yellen still had a pretty good day and made some nice throws on deep balls. Would those have been there with Jaden Daniels? Would USC's game plan been different? They really sold out to stop the run because they knew that there was a first-time quarterback over there and gave him a lot of 1v1 opportunities on the outside. They may not have done that with Jaden Daniels because he throws a really nice deep ball. So the game plan may have been switched. Those hypotheticals are always hard to say.
Yeah. I think that the one thing, even if it was just Jaden Daniels for the final drive, he's been really good at those. It's sort of one of those things where their offense, Arizona State's offense, doesn't look great throughout the game. They make a couple plays. It was sort of similar to what was happening, but those final drives, he gets that 4th and 10, the 15-yard run, and picks it up and converts and moves you. And somehow you're like, man, he's just not going to let this team not score. And he's been really good at that this year. So that's where I kind of think, even if the rest of the game kind of went at, the same way, I think Jaden Daniels makes a bigger difference at the very end.
But what mistake did Yellen really make on that drive? I mean, his tight end drops the ball over the middle, and he's got 15 yards. There's like 15 yards of space around him in a bubble that no one's there. He gets him down to the 20 at least. If he catches that ball, I mean, I don't blame him for a ball that's batted at the line of scrimmage on a stunt like that. That's just a great play by Christian Rector. You just got to give him credit for that.
But we've seen this team struggle with mobile quarterbacks all season long. I think you can't write that off.
But there was never a play where it's like he got sacked and that set them back. USC came close several times in that drive, but never happened. I just don't think if you sub 1v1 in that direction, you got to look at the individual plays. And there was never a play where Yellen – you're just like, oh, if that was Jaden Daniels, this would be so different.
Right, yeah.
So if you're just talking about that one drive and looking at it, he makes that throw to the tight end and he drops it. It's not on the quarterback then. That's on the tight end. If you have a different tight end in there.
If you're used to catching a ball from Jaden, I don't know. It doesn't really matter at this point because USC won. But actually, let's go to a live caller that we have in the. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
I watched the game yesterday. I was actually super embarrassed by the way the team played in the second half. I mean, you put in 350 or 320 plus yards in the first quarter, and then you don't do a darn thing afterwards. It looks like the team just doesn't have any fire in the second half, and they don't really want to play for Clay anymore, which is what the Trojan family kind of sees as a big problem. There's just no intensity from these guys anymore, and I appreciate y'all taking my call.
Thanks.
Of course. Thanks for calling in.
Interesting point. Do you think that I don't think they gave up. It just seemed like, we saw them kind of give up in the second half of the Oregon game. Some people say they didn't. I think they did. I don't think they weren't. It seemed like they're fighting for Clay Helton. It's sort of like it's just there's some disorganization there. It's not that well coached team, and I think that's what you're seeing more than players not giving a crap.
Yeah, I think there's some some of the penalties they're getting are discipline penalties. Throwing a guy to the ground after the whistle's been blown 3 times. And that player, I think OG after that play stayed in for that drive. Now, I know last week in Oregon, when he got the personal foul, Greg Burns immediately took him out. But there's a couple guys that are kind of mopey on the sideline to an extent, and that's kind of a concern. But that's because they're being replaced by other guys at times. So I think that plays into it. The sideline was pretty energetic going into the fourth quarter. Now, Clay Helton, between the third and fourth quarter, he went down through every defensive huddle and was like pumping his fist, let's go, going at him. And, there were some smiles and guys, had some energy on the sideline there. So I don't necessarily think that's the case. Obviously, when things change the very next play, when you fumble the ball and give the ball back to them, the emotion kind of swings then a little bit. So I think that the question is, do they continue to fight if they fall behind in that game?
Yeah.
Which we didn't see.
Yeah.
So they stayed ahead the entire game. They never, Arizona State never tied the game. They never caught up from that early burst that USC had. So if they did, then maybe you see a different game. But I thought just as far as energy goes, I thought on the sideline there was good energy yesterday for the most part.
Yep, I would say so too.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, you also saw it just seemed like at one point it just felt like a lot of bodies were just rotating in and out, especially with Keaton Slovis getting IVs on the sideline. It was just interesting dynamics there.
A lot of bodies just going down again. You've got Vi and Stephen Carr made the trip. They dressed out early and they came up, which might have been a little bit of gamemanship.
A trickeration there. I
It
wasn't sure
been,
about
yeah.
that. Especially because Vi, according to Alicia De Ortola from Raina Troy, said that he barely looked 50% going through warmups.
So it might have been a case where they're going to try them and we'll see, where they're at type of thing. But it also might have been, you're not going to say anything about Jaden Daniels until game time. All right, well, our two running backs are back. What's now?
Yeah.
You're going to have to prepare for them later, whatever it may be. But like the Marlon Tuipulotu, the back injury, he sustained a back injury actually. So that's a big concern there. Palier and Itiote came with the team as well. So that usually they don't bring a lot of guys that are injured. They'll bring the captains. So Jordan Iosefa and Christian Rector were going when they would travel. Those guys were still coming, but the rest of the guys that are injured, they stay home. So I think that tells you that they're close. All the guys that were injured are close.
And Helton said as much.
Yeah, I said they're kind of game time decisions for those
but
guys.
Tuipulotu did not travel, so that's one to watch this coming week.
Yeah.
Test Tackle on Periscope says, can't have a false start to begin a drive after a turnover. Yeah, that wasn't it after a timeout or something too? Like it's like you come out and then you get like a false start or something. Like I forget. I think I know what Tess is talking about. But yeah, that happened a couple times where
maybe out of a TV timeout or something. I don't remember there being a particular one. I haven't finished watching the game. I was in the fourth quarter, so there might have been one in there. I think the false starts on offense. The false starts on special teams, I think there was two of them. Like that's uncalled for.
Yeah, and there's a legal shift too, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's an illegal shift, and there was a false start. The
broadcast crew called out, like, how many special teams penalties is this? Like,
yeah.
So I just quoted that because I'm like, I harp on special teams all the time. Greg Biggins said he was going to do a drinking game. Every time I mentioned special teams on Twitter, he said, but I'd be drunk by the first quarter.
No, he said his liver would have
Or
failed.
his liver just failed, yeah. I'm trying to be nice, but the broadcast crew said it like the special teams were bad.
But the other false starts, I think, were definitely part of a new backup center being in there.
Yeah.
Justin Dedich being in there, and because it was Jalen McKenzie was one of them. It was Jalen McKenzie and basically the entire right side.
Did Josh Follow
Jackson.
do one?
Jalen McKenzie and Josh Follow jumped at the same time. So that tells me that there's something going on with the snap count or something.
Communication-wise, yeah.
So it got kind of loud there at Sun Devil Stadium, in that fourth quarter as they were trying to come back. But I don't think that was the case. It wasn't those weren't causing the jumps. I think it was more that there was something going on with the backup center plan. The biggest one was, and this is the second time it's happened, I don't know, in 2 or 3 weeks, Tyler Vaughn's jumping on the fourth down. They're going for it on 4th and 3, and he flinches, and now they have to punt the ball.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a redshirt junior guy who's been on the field for 3 straight years. You got to be better than that. He can't have that penalty. That's a penalty. Wide receivers should never have a false start. Just never should happen. And especially a guy that's a veteran and has played as much as he has, and that one forces them to change their what they're thinking and go with a punt. So that's the one that's much more concerning than the other ones. I think that was just a a deal with a backup center being in there, unfortunately.
Another real Periscope real quick.
Sure.
B. Korig.
Love the Periscope love. Great
at
job,
B.
Ryan.
Korig,
Doing a great job.
He says, I'm glad I subscribed to your website. You guys are pretty good. Well, we'll take the compliment. Thank you. Thanks for subscribing. We actually do have a special right now, 2 months for $1. So you're not going to beat that. So go on there, sign up. You get the rest of the season, the coaching search, all that kind of stuff.
I got to say, this is a deal you want to take advantage of given what we might think will happen in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, recruiting, all the stuff is going to be wrapped up. It's going to be really busy for the next couple of months. So for $1, you can get all the kinds of actions. If you hate it, you just, it's $1. But, I think you'll like it. Like he said, we're pretty good. So that's nice.
I thank you.
Thanks for us. I like being pretty good.
Nice. Let's dive into some questions, shall we? We had multiple questions about the semantics, a phrase that was used at the end or in Clay Helton's press conference. So we reported about this on Thursday during the introduction press conference of Mike Bohn, USC's new athletic director. He made a big deal about how it's not just fight on, it's fight on to victory. Victory is big, etc. And then Clay Helton, in his opening statement, he said, really proud of our kids and a lot of bodies down, a lot of bodies that didn't start, and then losing bodies during the game. Not only did they fight on, but they fought on to victory, and that's our motto. They found a way to get it done. So we had a lot of people write in and say, what did you guys think about him essentially quoting Mike Bohn and kind of doing a nod to what he said?
It's Coach Bohn, right? That's what
he hasn't gone there yet.
He hasn't gone to Coach Bohn yet. Yeah, that's Clay Helton. That's his personality. He's going to, I guess for lack of a better term, kiss up to the people that are,
a little bit of pandering there.
Yeah.
Or maybe just took it away as like, that's a good saying. I'm going to use that myself.
It's, if you remember him as the offensive coordinator back in the day, or even the quarterback coach, do you remember what he would say about Lane Kiffin? Do you remember what he would say about Steve Sarkisian? Like, it was all praise. Lane's the smartest play call. That's just who he is. So he gets a new boss. He's going to praise him, and flattery is one way to do that, and I think that's why he did that. Makes
sense. Kurt said that he changed to YouTube because you don't read Periscope, Ryan. So
sorry, Kurt. We're on 3 platforms. You can watch wherever you want. Sorry.
You can watch all 3 at the same time if you wanted to.
Yeah.
A lot of people
help the ratings.
Sure. A lot of people wanted to know just the mishaps that are happening on special teams. Clay Helton said that he has full confidence in John Baxter. People are essentially asking why. Why do you think that as long as USC practices special teams, they have a designated special teams coach, and they're just almost having we debated this on the way out of the press box. Can you get the yips on kickoff return coverage? Like, it just seems like they just can't get that done. And it's a problem for USC's defense was given such bad field position the whole night. It's just, you can't do that.
This is a problem that's been going on for a long time, and that's the way it is. The amount of resources that they put into special teams with the coaches, with the practice time, with the scholarships giving out to players, you can't be this far below average. It's nothing new. It's been happening for a long time. And this is one of the things that, Clay Helton does a lot of good things. He has a lot of shortcomings. One of them is really just being loyal to a fault, and he's just being loyal to a fault. Like, there are coaches that should have been let go. And Baxter, he's a cool guy to talk to, but the way they've performed on special teams has just not been up to par. It's just not been good enough. They go for a lot of home runs, and they're just striking out way too many times. So to me, it's just that there's nothing new there. We've said this before. We've said this for years. And Clay Helton refuses to make a move and continues to say he has full confidence in John Baxter. Now, he did say, I was listening to the radio broadcast, he didn't say this in his press conference, but he did say that he told John Baxter to start squibbing the kickoffs because they respected the kind of athlete that ASU had back there, and they didn't want to have another play that would turn the tables like that. So he instructed John Baxter to start squibbing. Now, he could have been doing this before, I don't know, whatever, but at least that's a positive sign where he's like taking a little bit of control, like, hey, Bax, I know you want to do this, but stop and do something else.
Yeah, it only took him 128 yards of returns on those first 2, including a 97-yarder before they decided to squib. And even when they did squib, he returned it 41 yards to the 50. Yeah. So their first 3 drives, Arizona State starts 31, which is quality field position when you return, the 3-yard line of USC, and the 50-yard line. I mean, they changed kickers to put Michael Brown in there to squib it. Alex Stadhouse, both his first kicks were 65 yards, which means they went into the end zone or at the goal line. You just got to cover better.
Yeah.
You know, if you need a squib, they were trying to kick it away from him and do different things. But if you just cover better, it's not a – I mean –
they practice enough that they should be better at this.
It's
correct?
Not, yes. It's not the Anthony Thomas back there.
No.
Like, it's not – like, Brendan Ayuk is a good player. He's going to be in the NFL. He's not that guy, though, as far as the elite kick returners and stuff. He's not one of those guys back there, so you should be able to do better.
You have a dedicated special teams coach. You do a lot of practice time with special teams. You have a lot of athletes, more athletes than just about anyone you play. You can't be trotting out 10 people on a punt return or whatever. You can't be doing these kind of things. So that's just something that's been happening, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, they did have 10 guys on last week against Oregon on a punt return. And it was a play where Amon-Ra St. Brown was trying to get outside, and if you have a blocker there, maybe he does. It's hard to say because you looked towards the end, he had that 24-yard punt return that set him up inside, Arizona State territory. The offense didn't take advantage, unfortunately, for USC, but they were at the 41. That's great field position with 5 minutes.
That was a good return.
That's a great opportunity to seal the game right there because of a good punt return.
Yeah.
And
he broke tackles.
He broke a tackle on
It was
that.
like a 63-yard punt, too. The guy was punting from his end zone. Like, that was a man punt. Like, that was crazy.
Which is
a man punt.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes why you don't punt it like that,
Yeah.
why you don't go full bore. But you look at the 97-yard kick return, what happened? Missed tackle. Kanai Mauga has him, spins him around. That's another thing. The tackling is not just an issue on defense, on special teams as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question on Facebook from Sean. Facebook, I see you guys. I'm getting to you. Don't worry. He says, has anyone asked Coach Helton about the current recruiting situation? He's coming up with a bunch of excuses regarding inconsistent play. What's his excuse for being 10th in the Pac-12 in recruiting?
We haven't really talked about that. The thing is, like, if you ask them, about rankings, like, they're going to say rankings don't matter and all this stuff. But it's kind of an average thing over time. USC, this is the worst recruiting class we've ever seen at this stage in the game. And I don't think you have an excuse. It's really just, it's because of the insecurity with him and his, the ability to hang on to this job. People don't think he's going to be there. And that's just not going to be good for recruiting.
It should be noted that Mike Bone pointed out recruiting a couple different times in his press conference. It's something he's focused on. So, I give some credit to the coaching staff. They loaded up last year in the class, and they brought in some 3-star guys. And a lot of guys said, why are they bringing in all these 3-stars? You look at a guy like Dorian Hewitt, who was a safety in high school. They moved him to cornerback. He looks like a dude.
He had a couple pass breakups, right? And key ones.
He's got
They
a bright
seem
future.
high on him,
And
right?
they're really high on him. He's got a bright future. Guys like Raylan Goforth or guys like, Kalana McCalla is a guy that came in very late in the process. They picked him up. He stepped in and made some plays for him.
Keaton Slovis,
So some of their lower ranked guys have really,
Keenan.
had some impressive, freshman season so far. Dejon Benton, when he's gotten there, has done some nice things as well. Now, does that mean they should have a recruiting class that has all 3-stars this year? No, absolutely not. You're USC still. But I think that they are doing a good job of identifying some unheralded talent because they haven't been able to recruit as well coming off a 5-7 season and now 6-4. Their thought is if we continue to win, it'll get better. That's basically the mindset of the coaches. And, that's what, if you ask them, they say, you guys keep winning, they'll come as long as you keep winning. That would be some kind of form of that answer would be what they would say, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're just trying to kind of like, hey, we just got to keep winning our games. And if that's the case, then things will pick up going towards December.
Yeah, we have a Facebook question from Kingsley who says, not that. He says, it seems like the team doesn't hold on to a lead, whether it's the beginning or the end of the game. Is it the players or the coaches? Where does that blame lie that they can't finish games or quote unquote have that killer instinct?
It's sort of one of those things where you want to, step on the opponent's throat and all that kind of stuff. This was a game you could have put away early. Like that lead was, looked insurmountable at the time. And the fact that ASU had chances to win at the end, definitely a head scratcher. And you have to look at to me, it's more on the coaching side than the players. It's not like you're not blaming individual players for doing, silly things. I think it's one of those things where figure out a way to get the team motivated and keep your foot on the gas. And yeah, okay, so you have one drive that starts at the 50, you don't score. You got to score on the next one. You got to make it a point of like, we can't let this happen again. Yes, you have a lead, but that's, I think, a failing on the coaching staff. They had to figure out a way to get something going. You had 3 quarters to just do something. You scored 3 points in each quarter, like you're averaging a point a quarter after getting 28. It's like that. You can't let that happen.
Yeah, it's obviously not the 85 Bears on defense on the other side. You showed that in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be being held to 3 points on your final 9 drives of the game. So it's definitely a coaching thing there. You can't blame players for, that there's not a killer instinct, I don't think. The coaches bring in the players, you build the culture, you cultivate that culture, and it's important for development too to get guys like, if you score 2 more touchdowns and it's 42-10, then guys like Raylan Goforth get a full quarter of play.
Yeah.
Meninoa Tufono gets in there. That's what happened, a couple weeks back when they were able to get a blowout. And those guys get some opportunities. The Dorian Hewitts and stuff, you get to see, okay, that guy can play a little bit. So I think it's huge when you're able to blow guys out, blow teams out, because then you're able to continue development of younger players, and that's been one of the things that hasn't happened the last few years under Helton. So you got to say it's a coaching thing, not a player.
Yeah.
Yep. I have 2 questions. One is for Shotgun, and the next one is for Ryan. So individual. First one is from Jasper Smith for Shotgun. He says, Shotgun, were you scared when Michael Pittman was coming at you like a Mack truck on the sideline in the first quarter after his catch completion while you were taking photos?
I think I showed my emotion in that one. No, I was not. Just because I read the push that he received, so I knew if you know a player well enough, you know whether they can decelerate or not. And that was just kind of, I read the hit and knew that he was going to be able to stop in time.
Out there reading.
Was that on the broadcast? You could see it? Or?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
If he would have got hit like really good at the sideline, that's when I would have dropped down just flat on the ground and gave him an opportunity to jump over me instead of, because I was on a knee at the time, and if I would have stayed in that position, he was going full speed, I would have been destroyed.
Most of the times though, you don't want to make the move. You want to let the super athlete make the move. Let them avoid you because they're better at that than you. And sometimes if you try to move, they've already decided to dodge, and now you screw it up. So.
That was like one of the first things you told me as an intern, and that's like the most serious thing you ever told me. You were like, Keely, don't move. And I was like, okay.
I mean, if you can tell like he's out of control and he's not going to be able to make an athletic move, like he's being hit or something. But if they're running at you, most of the time it's just like they'll avoid.
You're just like, okay.
Yeah, as Gerard Martinez can tell you, as Brandon Huffman can tell you.
I don't want to talk about it because I feel like it jinxes me.
Chris Trevino, got taken out by Bubba Bolden in high school. Basically,
Nice. Really?
We were talking about this on the way back, the drive back from Arizona. The closest I've come is Robert Woods' freshman year. He had a catch over the middle and was coming. I was on the left sideline. He came across and was going up the sideline, and I'm shooting photos of him coming towards me. And I hear a hit, and I don't see it.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the worst.
And so it was a wide receiver coming from the other side of the field to come, and he hits a guy chasing after him, and I just you cringe up, especially because I was using USC school equipment, so. I was like, this is a bunch of money that I don't have as a student, so hopefully they're not hitting me. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. Please. The player went like 2 feet by me, and so you just feel like the wind coming through.
Yeah.
And you're like, whew.
I had Rojo celebrated a touchdown at me, and then I was just stuck because everyone came around me, so I was just like, okay, congrats on the touchdown. That's great. Yeah, so it happens.
Chris Trevino also took a pass from DJ Uongalele in the
glasses.
It
It broke his glasses,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, last year.
Ryan, the question for you is from Heather Browning. She says, what is your take on USC's fan base? Feels like we're dwindling away. I'm loyal, but I'm not sure how much more I can watch and support.
Hey, Heather. Yeah, no, I think that's a concern. I think you have to be, in college athletics and athletics in general, it's tough. There's a lot of competition out there, especially in Los Angeles right now, for fan attention, fan money, all that stuff. I think USC has some loyal people, loyal fans for sure, but there's, you got to fill that stadium, and you've lost a lot of the people. There's a lot of people that are over it unless they go out and make some good hires. I mean, we've heard from so many people that canceled their season tickets. They just didn't feel like the administration was doing anything that winning was a priority. They weren't showing that winning was a priority, the kind of hires that they were making. And, bringing guys like Pat Hayden and Lynn Swan and not going outside to get a coach, just, promoting from within. They just felt like the administration wasn't putting a priority on winning. So why should they put, a lot of their time and effort and thought into this team and this program? And so Heather, we've seen that. But I think, getting a guy like Mike Bohn seems like he's going to make some good decisions. They're going to get another coach, probably going to go after big names here. So, the Urban Meyers will try to get those kind of people in. If USC at least tries to do that and get somebody, even if it's not Urban Meyer, get someone pretty good, I think you win a lot of those people back. But there's definitely been a concern. They're sick of the unsatisfying wins. They're sick of seeing a lot of talent kind of being squandered, and that's really what this team has done. So yeah, I think it's a real concern, Heather, because you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on one basketball team. You got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on another one, and that play just down the street from you. And there's so many other things, with Dodgers making a run, the Rams and Chargers and Kings, and there's soccer's good, like all this stuff. It's like there's really a lot of things you can do here in Los Angeles. And if USC football is not going to be very good, they're going to go watch something else.
In that sense, Sid on YouTube says the Coliseum has been relatively light on attendance this year. Without a huge hire like Meyer, do you think SC is at risk of becoming the Carson Chargers, more road fans than home?
No, not like that. I mean, they're still going to be the loyal fans. Like that's not
There was a similar question. LDR asked, if Bone keeps Helton as coach, what will people say? And I think they'll say, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the biggest thing, and it'll be very telling.
People are speaking with their wallets, and they're like, hey, I'm not going to be a donor anymore. I'm not going to, renew my season tickets. And, with the renovations, they kind of gave some people the runaround where they had to move their seats, and people, we talked about this before. So there was reasons to be upset. And I like the way the Coliseum looks and everything, but there's, the way it was handled, some of the fans weren't happy with it. They were sitting in the same place for 40 years, and they're like, I'm giving up my seats now. Being asked for more money and all that stuff. Now, you might get those people back if you get a big hire. Those people that were not really happy with the team, not really happy with where their seats were and stuff. You start winning, and they're winning championships again. People come back. So yeah, but I don't think they're going to be in danger of becoming the Carson Chargers.
I think this is a definitely a hungry fan base waiting for something. Because when I tweeted out USC's announced that they're gonna have a press conference for their AD, it just blew up, and people were like, "Oh my god!" And usually it's kind of quiet. So it was interesting how people are ready and waiting. I think they're just waiting for some news.
They want some good. You want some good news. We don't want to be reporting on crappy stuff all the time. Like,
it's true.
It's much more fun to report on things that are positive. And there's just been so many negative stories around USC. It's like you can't avoid it.
Yeah, and like you had a chance in this game. Like if if it's 56-14 or something, you reverse, or 56-24 like Oregon did to you the week before. It's a much better feeling for the fan base, for the administration, for the coaching staff, the players.
Yeah.
And that hey, maybe things, it was a bad game against Oregon. Let's turn things around. Let's win on the road, 2 games in a row, and try to take on UCLA, and maybe things fall for you to try to get to a Pac-12 championship type of thing. But it's hard to have confidence as a fan of the team when they do things like they did on Saturday, where they jump out and you see the potential.
Yeah.
And then you also see the struggles that they have at the same time.
Yeah, the fans aren't going to look at like, oh wow, it's amazing, beat ASU by 5 points or whatever. Like, no, like you saw the previous game, we're getting blown out by UCLA, and that's with their star quarterback. So you got to get new quarterback, and to struggle like that after getting the big lead, I mean, that just doesn't. The fans don't feel good about that. Like Clay Helton can talk about how this was a great win, and it's you need the road wins and all that stuff, but that doesn't make the fans know what's going on, and they know that this is not a great ASU team, and they're a team without their star player, the one that made everything go, and you still could have lost that game at the end, and they can see that. They're like, that shouldn't be. They know which team was more talented. They know the game shouldn't have went like that.
In that sense, I think you see that frustration when almost seems like the fans have higher expectations of this team rather than the Clay Helton. At least what he says in his press conferences. I feel like the goalposts have been moved so far this season. Even after the BYU game, that's when we kind of perked up and were like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what USC should be striving for, given their legacy and what they've done in previous years.
Yeah, you got to set the bar higher. We didn't really talk about injuries. Jose Penn on Periscope, Caleb Tremblay and Tyler Vaughn status for game day, and we can maybe talk about some of the other injuries too. We didn't do that, did we?
No, and Clay Helton didn't really give much of an update in his Sunday night press conference. I think he's kind of referred to now Tuesday as far as giving updates. Also because the players come in on Monday and they get a better idea of that rather than on Sunday. But I talked to Tyler Vaughn briefly after the game. He was walking fine. He said he was fine. But I always go with some caution when players kind of diagnose themselves. They're not always the best judge of that. But
they tend to be fine a lot. And then
you also don't know. You feel fine after the adrenaline of the game and stuff, but then you get, if you have to travel on a plane, your feet start swelling up or something.
The tape comes off, you take your shoe off, and your ankle becomes this big. You're like, uh-oh,
Suddenly things change a little bit. You wake up the next day, those things can happen. So we'll see with Tyler Vaughn's. I'm going to have an update on the Peristyle about a couple other guys. If you guys want to check it out there, I'll do that right after the show. It's a constant revolving door. Some guys get healthy and you lose some guys. A couple weeks ago it was like, hey, they got some starters back in the secondary, and then they immediately lose a couple guys. So it's been that way all season, and I will give the coaching staff credit for how they've been able to plug some guys in, but it's not the end all be all to why they're 6-4.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. Heather on YouTube says, why was Slovis so dehydrated? Who's responsible for making sure these kids are healthy?
I mean, that's a hard question to say because you see cramps in games all the time, whether it's hot, especially in hot weather, but even in cold weather, you'll see cramps and stuff. And is it the coaching staff's responsibility? Players have to condition their body throughout the week. It wasn't overly hot on the field there. Keaton Slovis knows the weather in Arizona, especially at Arizona State, where just down the road from his home. So maybe guys were getting there were a bunch of guys probably getting IVs at halftime to an extent. I'm sure there were some guys at least getting it. Maybe he had other stuff to do, as far as game planning and stuff, and he wasn't able to get. It's hard to say on those type of things.
He got like 3 bags of fluid, Clay Helton said, which
I saw it.
Seems significant.
And some bananas for potassium.
Yeah, they were running in protein bars and everything else. And he was about to go in. I tweeted that he was in the huddle and looked like he was coming in.
He grabbed his helmet and jogged over and then didn't go in.
Well, all your tweets were like, Slovis coming back in, Slovis coming. And then it was like, nope, Fink's back in.
So Slovis was there and he was warming up, and I think he cramped up again. Because he was like he was doing drops and stuff with Clay Helton like watching intently on him, and then Clay was like, "No, but stay in the game." Basically, is what he told him. I kind of overheard. I think that's what the message was. But then you see Slovis was on the sideline. And he was stretching it again. He was really like
he went back in the tent.
Well, he was grimacing and stuff during that drive, and it was a short drive. So then he could have he had time to go in the tent afterwards. But he was grimacing and stuff as he was still getting worked on. And I think Brandon Peely got hurt. Like, there was a trainer massaging his calf the entire drive until Brandon Peely got hurt, and then they had to run out on the field and stuff. So they were working on it as much as they could, and they did get him back in there, obviously. So they did enough to get him back in there. Did it change anything? Not necessarily. I mean, Matt Fink led what Clay called the most important drive of their season. Because
field goal.
Because he threw the ball up to Drake London. He made a great catch. Now, Fink made a couple other really nice throws in there, post Michael Pittman and stuff, that got him in that range, and they kicked the field goal, and it ends up being a big thing because otherwise, ASU's trying to kick a field goal at the end to try to win it.
Yeah. Who came? Was that Alicia that did the YOLO raid? Is that where that came from?
Yeah, it was Alicia. They were in a Troy group there.
Right. I think they called you out on their CarCast or something about because they would, they always say, sorry, Keely, sorry, Keely. And
they do that because I'm a CarCast truther because they don't actually do it in a car anymore. So the bit this season is that they say, sorry, Keely.
Yeah.
Ryan, what would you say to the people some people in our comments say that we're too negative and we're too hard on this team? They won and we should just, go with it.
I mean, that what we're trying to do here is like we'd rather not be as negative. I mean, but the writing is on the wall. Like there's going to be a change in the coaching staff, and that's just the way it is. And so we've seen this team. They should have won by more points than they did, but they won the game. And I think your senior like Christian Rector, you let him be happy. That's fine. We're trying to be objective here and tell you what we think. If we thought that the team was amazing, we'd tell you they were amazing. If they were 0-10 and they win a game and they played well, we'll tell you that. But this is a 6-4 team, like Shotgun said, and they're way too talented to have 4 losses on the season. That's just the way we think, and that's what we're going to say. So, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry if you feel we're being too negative, but we're just trying to tell you what our honest opinions are. We're not going to, put rosy-colored glasses on and say things that, everything's awesome, and then when they go out and lose a game, then you're like, you guys said everything was awesome. Like, no, I mean, we're trying to tell you what the concerns are, and for the most part, you're seeing it. We say, hey, this is a concern, and there's issues that we see in the games. That's just kind of, we're just trying to be objective here. We're not here, USC is amazing at everything they do, no matter whatever happens on the field.
Yeah. USC has an interesting decision coming up as far as Ryan.
So, did
the
I?
Camera.
Sorry.
Yes. As far as Keely Kristen and whether or not that he will continue to use his eligibility or decide to redshirt. And that goes to Vavai Malapai and Stephen Carr, where they are this week. So that's going to be a big thing. But Mike Connolly on Facebook said, Keely Kristen is a future star, but we are struggling without a bigger back. What's your take? And then Jasper Smith said, is the staff really considering redshirting Kristen, considering the injuries at running back? It seems like almost you can't afford to do that.
Yeah, I don't really agree with the redshirting, especially like if you're that talented of a player
And a running back, so you have a shorter shelf life to begin with.
Yeah, like is he going to be around for 5 years? Like I don't think so. So yeah, to me, I don't know why they're putting emphasis on that. But what do you think?
It comes down. He said that he's willing to do whatever the team needs. He said he initially came into the season expecting, I'm going to redshirt. I wanted to redshirt, and then obviously being thrown in the mix. Now he's like, if they need me, if they want me to redshirt, good. If they don't want me to redshirt, even better. Is basically what Keenan said after the game.
That's what he told Dan. Yeah.
I was standing right there too, Keely.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways,
That's what Dan said. I'm sorry.
but
He told Dan.
That's how Dan sold it to me. Sorry.
Anyways, the question becomes who comes back. If it's just one of the guys, how healthy are they? Can they carry the full workload? It might be a wait and see thing. It might be, okay, be ready tonight. When they go to Cal, he's going to travel on it, and they say, be ready. We're going to try not to play you. If it happens, then so be it. The question is he a guy that's going to leave early? At that small of a size, you have to, and he's got the speed, obviously. He'll have to do a couple more things. He showed the hands, made a really nice catch on the first touchdown, and then obviously showed some power getting through the two defenders on the long touchdown. So his game is evolving. Will it evolve enough that he's ready to leave early? That's a big question mark. And also because running backs get drafted so much lower now, is it worth leaving early to try to all those questions have to be kind of discussed, and it's kind of a hard thing to figure out there. It depends on also what he wants to do off the field. Does he really want to get his master's degree? So he would like to be here for that 5th year to potentially.
Yeah.
Those things. It's not as simple as, they should play him because because you don't want him here for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, factors that go into it, and the injury thing is huge as far as if Stephen Carr and Vi come back. Then you go, we can push him back. What if only one of them comes back? How much of the workload can they take? All that stuff. Because if you're only going to give him 5 carries in the game, then don't use him.
Right.
You can use Quincy Junti for that. It's hard to say, is Dominic Davis back next week from concussion protocol? There's a lot of factors that will go into that one, I think. Has he earned the right to keep playing? I think so.
Yeah.
I think he's looked good, especially the way his game has evolved over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
We have a question on Facebook from no, it's not working. I'm sorry. Don, who says, if Clay Helton is fired, who on the coaching staff is kept around, if any? How do you think that will go if that does happen, Ryan?
I mean, that just depends on who the head coach is. I think it's probably going to be, I would guess it's going to be a house cleaning, because you're not promoting from within and keeping people around. You're bringing in somebody big from the outside who's run their own stuff. They're going to want to have their own people. I mean, it would really depend on who it is. And then, most likely they got their own people for just about every position, but there might be one where they want to keep somebody on because they're, one of the guys that they like couldn't come and they like this person. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't count on many people sticking around. This is not about, changing, or shuffling things around a little bit. This is about a complete regime change. New athletic director, new head coach, bigger support staff. Like everything is going to change. So I wouldn't count on, probably anybody. But maybe they keep one person around for some sort of sense of continuity. But for the most part, you don't want continuity. You want everything new. A new culture brought in and to install into this football program.
Well, TBD, because there's still a head coach.
There's
and
no job opening.
Nothing has happened. We've reached the top of the hour, so I'm going to do some rapid fire. Let's see. James on YouTube says, do they have scripted plays? Because it seems after the first 20 plays or so, they lose all sense of what they're doing on offense.
I mean, we've seen in the last couple weeks where they unveil some new stuff, and then midway through the second quarter usually is when it kind of disappears. So that's like the Amon-Ra St. Brown in the backfield type stuff. The 5 wide receiver sets against Colorado disappeared after the first, midway through the second quarter. So I don't know if it's necessarily a script that there's probably definitely not a script that goes all the way into the middle of the second quarter, but they start adjusting back to their base stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily script per se, but it seems like when they want to make adjustments to defenses, they revert back to the stuff they've been running all season.
Jimmy says, under this coaching staff, is it bad that we're actually making a bowl game now, considering that it might prolong the process of getting a new coaching staff and signing day is coming around fast?
Everything's moved up. The timetable has to be moved up because of the early signing period. It's December 18th. I just don't think you have any time to waste. You have to. Everything's going to have to go quickly. So
you've seen in recent years, if there are firings of bowl eligible teams, it still happens after the regular season ends.
Yeah.
And then you just have an interim coach until as the search is going on.
Which is what Clay Helton did. Clay Helton was the interim head coach for the Las Vegas Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
The first time around.
Yeah.
The first time he was the interim head coach.
Yeah.
Because usually you don't have people on staff that have been the interim coach twice. And you don't have coaches on staff that have lasted through 3 athletic directors either. That usually doesn't happen. But that's the kind of dysfunction that's been going on in the USC athletic department.
So Cal Trojan says, do you feel that the Cal game could be a trap game with UCLA the following week?
Cal looked better. They still had Devin Monster playing, and he looked like an actual quarterback. Like, you've seen him before. They were terrible. Their offense was bad. Now, they had a bye. Justin Wilcox, who USC fans are familiar with, said they had some kind of plan for the quarterback, whatever. But it looked like an actual offense, and they played Cal football where they got the lead early, and they could let their defense go out and really bother Washington State. And that's I think that's a pretty good Washington State team. They're 1-5 in conference, I believe, but Ryan Leaf had them as he's number 3 in the conference, like in his power rankings. I tweeted, I'm like, dude, they're 1-4. He's like, yeah, but they're really good. Like, they didn't look that good yesterday, but Cal is different. Like, they looked different. We see these Pac-12 teams week to week. It could be very different. There's maybe 3 games they look like this, 3 games they look like that. Well, Cal was garbage, and now they looked a lot more competent against a decent Washington State defense. So even if Chase Garbers doesn't come back, like, this looked like an actual football team, and if you fall behind early, Cal can play that. Grind it out. They're going to run the football. They're going to play tough defense. And so I wouldn't even look at it as a trap game. It's, Cal, if you were looking at them 3 weeks ago, yes, it's an easy win. The way they played against Washington State at home last week after their bye, it looked like a different team to me.
Generally, trap games are reserved for really, really good teams that are looking ahead to another really big game. I don't think USC can fall into that first category.
No, they're 6-4.
So I don't know that they overlook it? Yes. But I think that the way they've struggled on the road, it's hard for me to say that they definitely shouldn't, but I don't think that's necessarily will be the case.
Yeah. UCLA had a bye. We'll see what they do against Utah, but they are playing really well too. But, who knows? Maybe they start coming back down to earth. It's hard to say, but Cal looked like an easy win before, and now I'm not so sure, so we'll see.
Yeah, and more reason to look at the UCLA-Utah game. If UCLA does beat Utah, then that's a Pac-12 South Bowl, USC-UCLA.
Yeah.
If USC is to win.
If USC wins against Cal, yes. Agreed. Let's go to Shotgun. I'm going to go to you after this, but James says, does anyone else think about how USC has to open with Alabama next year? That game is going to be ugly. he says.
So what about the Baba game?
He says, does anyone think about that it's looming in the distance?
I mean,
I think there's so much current and present that has to be addressed that I don't think that's the major concern, obviously. I mean, it's like looking forward to the non-conference schedule in 3 years. It doesn't really matter because so much can change. When you're in a area of time where so much can change, will it? That's the question. But so much can change that I think people are really focused on the now. Especially you just got an athletic director. I think people are focused on what has just changed.
It's just unfortunate that whoever the new coach is, that's their first game. And the same thing happened to Clay Helton, basically, when he was his first full year. He gets to come out of the gate and play Alabama.
Yep.
So, so you're talking about coaching team. When you're switching coaches, usually there's some kind of issue. And then you're taking on a power like that who has their I's are dotted, their T's are crossed. Like, this is a well-run team that's been doing it for a long time at an extremely high level. And then you have USC, which is like turning over. And that, it's not like if they could have played them at the end of the 2016 season, it might have been fun, but that's not the way it is. So you're going to have, whatever it is going to be this new team. And, that's not really how you want to start things off, having to go on the road and play Alabama.
Yeah, without a doubt. Jasper Smith says, if somehow a tight end emerges, will Drake London see a reduction in targets considering he's been the guy in the middle?
No.
I think they like him too much.
Cromanhook actually got injured in this game. He's one of the players that was injured as well. So I think that he's just a better receiving option when they're going to split guys out. Now, the question becomes, does his future hold him as a tight end? As some people, like Joel Klatt's really big on him being a split tight end at the next level. So I don't know if that's ideal for him. I think he'll transition into being an outside receiver at USC as his, progresses, and then maybe a tight end steps up into his role, or they change that role. Who knows, depending on how the offense kind of involves itself too.
Jonathan Klein said, would Keaton Slovis be successful if T. Martin was still the offensive coordinator?
I mean, I was never one that was saying this is T. Martin's problem. This was more of a system that they were running that was just sort of left over from the Kiffin Sark days. There wasn't really this cohesive offense. So I don't think Slovis would look as good. I don't think any of the quarterbacks would look as good if they're running the same kind of offense that they had last year. It's just, this is a much more quarterback-friendly offense, and I think it allowed a true freshman like Keaton Slovis to be able to perform at a much higher level.
Danny says, when Fink came in, do you think it would have been smarter or better for him to use his running ability rather than staying in the pocket?
I mean, I don't remember a play where he didn't, like, he did something like, oh, man, he should have run in there. I'd have to go back and watch, but that's not usually part of their game plan anyway. It's just more of an impromptu thing when that happens.
I mean, I don't think they're going to suddenly do a ton of read option stuff with him because there's no quarterback behind him, too. You have to always keep that kind of in the back of your head. And he's shown that he can throw the ball, and his receivers will go make plays, in that Utah game. So it's not like he can't throw the ball at all.
Shotgun, I know there's probably questions that I missed. Do you want to wrap it up with whatever rapid fire you choose?
Isaac Trick wanted to know, Isaac Taylor Stewart, wasn't he supposed to be fast? He is really fast, but when you get beat, there's only 30 yards to make up 5 yards of ground. It's hard to do. Yeah. So that's what happened on that lone touchdown there. Tony said, with so much talent on the team, will USC be a top 10 team next year? I think that's an interesting question. It avoids the coaching ask. Right. And says, will it be a top 10 team?
I mean, I don't think to start, even if they hire a guy like Urban Meyer, but if they hire a guy like Urban Meyer, then they'll be a top 10 team. I think so, yes. At some point in the season.
At some point, then sure, yeah.
The quality of talent is slowly dipping, though, as far as, the rankings that we have, and stuff. So we'll see, who they lose off this team, how that affects things like that. Jasper, with an experienced secondary that Cal has, what should the game plan be heading into next week for the offense to give the team a chance to move the ball with the way they intercept it?
That's strength on strength. You're talking about
don't throw it to them.
Yeah, don't throw it to the Cal guys.
I think that's a pretty simple answer.
But they did a really good job against, and this is another team that gets to play Washington State, followed by USC. Oregon did the same thing. Was there another team that?
There was. I did this preseason. There were like 4 teams in USC's schedule that faced Washington State before they faced USC.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So and Cal did a really nice job stifling that Washington State offense that looks really good at times. So that's that could be an issue. I mean, that's USC relies on their wide receivers to win games a lot of times. You saw what Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, huge numbers in this one. It's going to be tougher to do against Cal, especially if Cal has more of an offense like we saw, and they get like a little early lead. They can kind of play keep away for a while. This could be a challenging game, more so now than I definitely thought in the last couple of weeks.
If my notes are still correct from preseason, Stanford, Oregon, and Cal and Colorado faced Washington State before USC.
I think Colorado did too. Yeah.
Yeah, Stanford, Colorado, Oregon, and Cal. So 4.
Stanford's not correct.
Are you sure?
Because Stanford played USC
Then I
like
don't
week
know.
2.
Okay, then.
But
then
I think you're right with Colorado. I think Colorado did.
Colorado did. That's correct. Because they had all those yards after catch.
And Oregon did.
And
Yeah, Oregon did too. Yeah.
And
think
We just don't think Stanford.
so
did.
3. Okay, so we're sort of close.
Yeah. Close.
Jared Cruz said, "Holiday Bowl, here we come." There were Holiday Bowl representatives at the game
Who
on
knew your name?
Saturday.
It's interesting.
Weird.
They
what
do.
happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
They must be tunnel vision fans. Sid, how many years of eligibility does our Aussie punter have?
4.
Just like everyone else. Could he be on the team when he is 32? I think he may be more consistent in his later years. I don't know. I think that's a joke. But yes, he could be on the team. There's no rule. There's no age rule. There's been stories of 55-year-old guys at very small colleges walking on and playing with a team or something.
Yeah.
There's no age limit. It's just you have 5 years. 5 to play 4 is the saying. You have 5 years to use your 4 years of eligibility.
I do think though he came in as a redshirt freshman for some reason, so I think he's a 4 to play 4 guy.
So he may have just as. Now the question for him is if he continues to produce and is really good, does he try to go, to the NFL and be a free agent signee rather than playing out his 4 years? That becomes degree versus profession, even though he's already had a profession. Sid also asked if SC loses to Cal and UCLA, would the players, coaches, staff implement a bowl ban and resign immediately? I think that would be a just punishment. What say you?
No.
They're not resigning. No, Clay Helton's not resigning.
And there's also, Anthony said, do you think Mike Bohn would force Helton's resignation rather than having to fire him so soon after taking the AD job? He's not. Why would you resign and give up your buyout? No coach is going to do that. Unless you're Gary Anderson at Oregon State, which is just a really, really weird situation.
Yeah. And he
Mike
was a unique coach to begin with.
Yeah. Mike Bohn took the job knowing this was going to be what was going to happen. So he's not going to avoid it. You just have to do it.
And Ron said, is there a limit on the number of fifth-year red shirts? Does USC still look to junior colleges for prospects? Will they go these routes if poor recruiting continues? No, there's no limit on fifth-year guys. They might look at the grad transfer market more than the junior college, just because junior colleges players are just a little difficult for USC to get in at times. Jalen Watson was a guy who just couldn't get all his grades and stuff in order to get into the university at USC.
Yeah, so I think that you might see that. Like Illinois got a big win this weekend. They were down.
Josh Amartebebe had 4 catches for like 168 yards, 2 long touchdowns.
Crazy. So what Lovie Smith did in that glorious white beard of his, he left spots open. And USC might have to. We had a question, I think. It might have been a podcast question or television question. I don't remember, Keely. But someone brought that up. And I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty interesting strategy where you get the new coach coming in and there's some guys you're just not going to be able to close on. You want to try to get a lot of those big name people to delay to February at least and then give a chance to recruit them further. But if you're not going to be able to get the guys you want, instead of bringing in just fillers and bodies, leave spots open that you could get transfers in. And because we've seen a lot of really good names go through the transfer portal. And if you get a big name coach, I mean, there's more likely someone want to come in and play for him. So you might get, if it's an Urban Meyer, you might get some Ohio State guys coming over. Who knows?
And it just kind of depends on how the recruiting class plays out and how many slots are available, how many guys transfer out, type things. Our good buddy LC said, Shotgun thinks USC players are always leaving for the NFL early. They have 2 players that are NFL ready. Just because there's 2 guys that are NFL ready doesn't mean there won't be someone leave early that shouldn't leave early, which seems to happen. Usually it's 1 a year. It's kind of just a consistent over, since I've been covering the team for 9 or 10 years now, like in the overhaul, it averages out to about 1 a year.
That shouldn't leave.
That do leave. The guys like George Farmer, that should have an extra year of college, try to put more tape out there instead of trying to make that jump. Now, guys leave for different reasons. Nickel Roby left because he needed to help his family out. He doesn't get drafted, but Nickel Roby, look at how his career has progressed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You would like to just make sure, you would hope all those guys get their degree. That's the biggest thing. Some guys have already finished their stuff, and so they're leaving with a degree, even if they're leaving eligibility on the table. That's kind of the biggest thing there. But there are often guys that leave early that maybe shouldn't. So it's not something that is like I'm just pulling this out of nowhere.
Yeah, earlier this year, no one left earlier, right? Or this past season, the previous
surprising,
season.
yeah.
Yeah, that's like the first time I can remember that happening in quite a while.
Yeah. 2 more questions. We have one from John who says, will Mike Bone get UC Davis off the schedule?
That's an interesting question. We haven't got a chance to ask him that yet. It's certainly important to a lot of alumni, former players. I think it's something he could look into. And I think you bringing someone like that in, it's going to change the budgeting of the athletic department. So are you worried about the buyout and things like that? So I think that's something that's on the table, at least potentially. We don't know for sure if that's something he would be willing to address, but I think prominent alumni boosters are going to say, hey, the streak of not playing in FCS school is important. Is there something you can do? And I just don't think Lynn Swann didn't seem to care about that too much.
LDR says, Shotgun, have you graded each position so far this year? Are the Titans still the worst team on the group or position on the team?
I was going off of the Pro
PFF.
Football Focus grades last year for that. We don't have access to those this year, but no, I think Eric Cromanhook's done a really nice job blocking there. Now, they haven't been used as pass targets a ton, but I think Eric Cromanhook has 1 drop, but the rest he's made some tough catches in traffic and stuff. Obviously, Josh Follow being injured, he hasn't had a chance to do too much there, but he's got a couple of catches as well. And Jude Wolf has been in there as a blocker. So they've done some nice things. That position hasn't been used a ton because of the emergence of Drake London, I think. And being able to use him split out in 4 wides. I did find it interesting that they started the game with a tight end in the game, but then went 4 wides. They split out the tight end on the first play of the game. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
Alrighty, guys. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I did have one more thing. And
Sure.
Fred asked, did you guys see the ref in the Wazoo Cal game was suspended for a game for calling and forcing the penalty on the wrong team? It's hashtag Pac-12 refs, right?
So awesome. Yeah, that's very Pac-12.
I don't know if that's awesome, but it is very Pac-12 refs. I mean, the hit that Jay Tufele had was called roughing the passer. When the passer he jumped up to make the throw, and he hit him while he caught him in the air and tackled him, and he got a roughing the passer for that.
Yeah. I mean, the Washington State game, how crazy is this? Like, this isn't like, oh, they should have started at the 35, but they started at the 30. They were going to be Washington State was going to be at the Cal, if the play was called correctly.
Washington State returned it to the 50, Ryan said.
They would have got the ball at the Cal 35. Instead, they got it at their own 8. Like, how big of a screw up is that in a close game? I mean, that's insane. And I don't even know how the coaches can let that. I mean, I guess they called it on the wrong team and they didn't realize it. I don't know if the player would say, hey, blah, 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 this happened. But, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly when it happened, but that was a 20-14 game after the third quarter.
Yeah.
So it's 6 points. 6 points is huge. I mean, that's 60 yards. It's huge.
Yeah. That's a big screw up.
Yeah.
And so they said that Pac-12 announced today that a ref has been suspended for a game. Didn't say who.
Yeah.
They said the rest of the officiating crew has been downgraded. Didn't explain what that means. They wanted to be more transparent this year. And they are telling us that someone's suspended, but it's not like they're being fully transparent. They're like, hey, we're cleaning up the fog just a little bit for you instead of actually putting in new glass that you can see through.
Jeez.
Yep. Alrighty. Besides that, any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Just 2 games left in the regular season, guys. It goes by so fast.
Cannot believe it. The weekender this weekend, we'll have Tunnel Vision Thursday at 7. Don't forget. Yeah, when do you guys leave? Friday morning or something?
Yeah.
Don't forget. Till Tuesday, we got the two month for $1 special going on at uscfootball.com. If you haven't tried it, make sure you check it out.
Take advantage of it.
The peristyle is the biggest message board in the world as far as covering USC. I've created that in 1996, and it's been going strong ever since. It's insane. You want to get in there. Lots of insider nuggets. Lots of cool stuff on the peristyle for $1. I mean, come on. There's no brainer for that one. But make sure you guys check that out.
Yep. Shotgun, final thoughts? You good?
USC got a victory. Congratulations for that. They're bowl eligible.
Yep.
Congratulations to the seniors for getting an extra game.
Yes.
But again, it was a very unsatisfying win for USC fans, and it's been a continuation of the theme.
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. Like Ryan said, we'll be back on Thursday at 7 p.m. to preview USC's matchup in the Bay against Berkeley, Cal. So we'll talk about that. And if any news has transpired since then, you never know. Buckle up with USC.
Who knows?
You never know. I don't want to jinx anything. Sorry, guys. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Bye.
See ya.
I forgot to mention the Pac-12 refs giving a high five penalty again.
Oh, wait, hold on. We're coming back. That's true. They kept the Keenan don't high five a fan. So they did.
Dumb. Brandon Ayuk scores and he gives like 3 little pats. 15-yard penalty. USC ends up getting the ball at the 50 after they kick it out of bounds. Just stop. Just stop, Pac-12 refs. Just look the other way. You know, if he jumped over the fence and went and made out with someone or something, yeah, call the penalty.
Wow.
15 yards.
Nice. Bonus tunnel vision.
I know. We've never come out and then come
Sorry,
back in.
guys.
Tunnel
Shotgun.
vision. OT.
Overtime.
That's probably the biggest thing I hate about Pac-12 refs. That's stupid penalties.
Yeah.
Yep. Alrighty. For real this time, that's going to wrap it up for Tunnel Vision. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Bye.
Bye-bye.